I'm not jumping in. I'm already here. All right, welcome back. New episode, new assignment that you guys should be working on as you're watching this video. Happy New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year. And let's get it. So we're going to start off second semester by going over a very important concept called imperialism. So if you're watching this video now and you're in my class, I've already introduced this concept to you in a number of ways. I did it visually. I've also shared a video with you by Mr. Keith Hughes. Shout out to you. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, you should definitely check it out. He does an amazing job at explaining imperialism. And then I also assigned you guys an anticipation guide where you were supposed to check, accuracy, blah, 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 blah. Let's get into it. So let's recap what is imperialism. Imperialism is if I was only able to describe it in 2 words, it's called the takeover. Okay? And there's a reason why the United States wanted to take over the world, almost like Pinky in the Brain, You're too old to understand that. But imperialism is a policy, it's a foreign policy where you're extending your country's power and influence in 2 ways. One way is through diplomacy, by establishing relationships and, a friendship with other countries. But the way that we tend to see imperialism would be through some type of military force. That could be some type of conflict, war, invasion, or just making your presence known by establishing military bases all over the world. All right? Imperialism is not colonialism, because with U.S. imperialism, we're not there to take control officially. We're not looking to control the government. We're not looking to, stick the American flag in the sand. We're looking to control behind the scenes. Okay? So I went ahead and I wrote down the definition of imperialism here and colonialism at the bottom. So colonialism is a policy of acquiring full or partial political control. Okay? With imperialism, we're looking for more so influence, and that doesn't always require full control. So you can influence someone to make decisions that benefit you without you having to call the shots necessarily. So that's why I view imperialism as a method of getting something behind the scenes. And there's a lot of reasons to explain why we prefer imperialism over colonialism. Let's keep it going. All right, so as I stated before, American imperialism, aka the takeover, is done for a number of reasons. Mr. Keith Hughes made a really good connection to being hungry. Usually when people rub their bellies, it's either because they may have a tummy ache or they're just hungry. And in this case with American imperialism, we were hungry for more. More of what? If you take a look at my list, let me expand it, because some of you did express to me how often you're not able to see. So number 1, we needed access to more raw materials and natural resources that we lacked here in the United States. That's one reason that prompted us to, take on this different approach called imperialism. Number 2, we needed new markets. In other words, as an entrepreneur, you have the goal of wanting to not only sell your products to those in your country, but at some point you want to grow and expand globally. So we were looking for more markets, aka more buyers. Buyers that's willing to buy all the junk that we create and invent. All right, number 3, we're a little twisted, right? So we have this mindset where we actually think that we're better than everyone. I've already covered this mindset with you. I started off introducing this mindset to you through Manifest Destiny. We've also talked about nativism when we discussed the influx of immigrants migrating to the United States. And this mindset continues with imperialism because now we've convinced ourselves that the world needs us and that we're the civilized group and everyone else is not civilized. So we've kind of taken on this burden to spread our wave of democracy to the entire world. If you ask me, this is a form of racism. This is just nativism on a global spectrum. Because who are we to judge how others live? Who are we to expect people to conform or change and adopt our way of living? All right? So as a result of having this hunger for more materials, more buyers, and this duty to spread democracy, it resulted in us acquiring a number of territories. For example, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, and hopefully at the end of this lecture, you guys can make a decision in terms of your views on imperialism. Do you support it? Do you not support it? Why or why not? So, it's very important that as a student in U.S. history, you not only understand U.S. imperialism and its ultimate goal, but you also have some examples to demonstrate knowledge of U.S. imperialism. What's up with the hands? That was so cute. But anyways, so I would call the Spanish-American War like the best example because based on the events that took place during this war, it really demonstrates us acting in a way that benefits us, okay? But we have a very sophisticated way at presenting our actions and efforts in a way that portrays us helping others. But the truth is, everything that we do here in the United States ultimately benefits the United States. So, pay attention. This is the Spanish-American War. This is a war between Cuba and Spain. This was not a war between the United States and Spain, but it did eventually cause us to jump in. And I'll talk about what caused us to jump into this war. So, why would the people of Cuba want to go to war against Spain? Well, they were colonized by Spain, and they had a desire to be free and independent. They were being controlled. That's why I use the word colonized. They were controlled by Spain, and they wanted to be free and independent. They wanted to govern themselves. And at that moment in history, they felt as if the only way to get that is to go to war, is to revolt. Okay? Now, they also understood that Spain is a much bigger entity than them, and in order to achieve this goal, they would need the assistance of the United States of America. So Jose Marti, who is known as one of the Cuban revolutionaries of this war, launched a series of, we call it guerrilla warfare. Someone else may call it a series of violent demonstrations. And these violent demonstrations will often result in just like, it would just wreak havoc in these neighborhoods and these communities in Cuba. And because these demonstrations would often turn violent, it would result in innocent people dying. And it also resulted in the destruction of a number of American businesses. So I view these guerrilla warfare, these violent demonstrations, as clickbait. Now, what's clickbait? Clickbait is basically, let's say you're surfing the web and a pop-up ad shows up and it's based on something that you may have researched in the past, or it asks you a weird question like, hey, if you want to find out more about aliens in outer space, click here. That's why it's called a clickbait. So what's the clickbait here? The clickbait here is to get the United States of America's attention. And the best way to get our attention is to mess with our money. So by destroying American businesses in Cuba, we're like, wait a minute. Let me put something down. Stop. No, seriously, I'm going to be serious this year. So the clickbait was to get our attention. And the best way to get our attention is to mess with our money, So of course, investors, business tycoons are going to reach out to their buddies in Congress and say, hey, you may want to check out what's happening in Cuba because it's now starting to affect us financially, economically. Okay, so that was one way of Cuba getting our attention because they knew that they needed our assistance to gain independence. Something else that was utilized as a way to kind of lure us into this war was a new way of journalism called yellow journalism. Yellow journalism is when you're writing stories in a way that's tugging at someone's emotions. They read the headlines, they look at the pictures of babies dying in Cuba, and now as a U.S. citizen, you're emotionally tied to this event. You're saying to yourself, oh my God, if that was me, wouldn't I want the United States to jump in and help? Oh my God, we must help them out because, you know, we're the best country in the world and everyone else is uncivilized, and, you know, it wouldn't be right if we didn't jump in and help these people gain their freedom. So yellow journalism was really an effective tool to rally public support for U.S. involvement in the war. And like I have here, sensational writing to tug at one's emotions. And I'm going to go as far as saying that yellow journalism doesn't necessarily mean that what you're reading is true. Oftentimes they're exaggerated or it's missing pieces of the puzzle, and it's missing pieces of the puzzle or missing important details of the story because if they tell you everything, then perhaps they're not going to tug at your emotions. Does that make sense? And I mean, truth be told, we see this every day. You know, we call it today fake news. So those stories about the violent attacks, which is causing innocent people to die and business owners to lose money, really rallied public support for U.S. involvement in the Spanish-American War. All right, let's move on. So the United States eventually jumps in. Why? I just explained it. Money is on the line, as well as yellow journalism. But on your test, if you was faced with a multiple choice question, and the question wanted you to identify the leading cause for U.S. involvement in the Spanish-American War, your answer would be the explosion of the USS Maine ship. So just to kind of give you a little spill about this story, this ship actually had American citizens on it, and as a result of the explosion, of course, those Americans died, and immediately stories started circulating stating that Spain was behind the USS Maine ship exploding. Now, you do the math. We're already concerned about our money. We're already reading stories that's tugging at our emotions. And now there's an explosion that's resulting in American lives, that's resulting in the loss of American lives. So you add all of that together, and you're going to now have a country willing to jump into a war because now they have cause or reasons to jump into that war. Now, was there any evidence proving that Spain actually blew up the ship? There's no evidence. It's 2020. Still no evidence. So you have a lot of historians that will tell you that, you know what, perhaps we staged this event in order to justify jumping into the war, because the truth is we've always wanted to jump in to protect our money, to gain more power, but you want to have support of your people. You want your people to support you interfering in wars that you truly don't have anything to do with, okay? And what better way than to justify you involving yourself in a fight that's not about you? And that's where the USS Maine ship comes in. So now we have a reason to jump in because now American lives are at stake. Make sense? Make sense? So let me just recap all of this. The United States jumps in for a number of reasons. Money and power is on the line. Yellow journalism. But most importantly, the USS Maine ship explodes, and we pin the blame on Spain. So we go to war. Of course we win the war because we're the United States. And we officially, I need you guys to know this, we officially end the war with a document called the Treaty of Paris. It officially ends the war. It's a wrap. We're done. Okay? What are the details of this document, this contract, this agreement to end war? Number one, Cuba should definitely gain its independence. But I have independence in quotations because we're saying that they're independent, but we're doing things in a way that allows us meaning the United States, to still have some form of control over this country. So there are two things that we created. One is called the Teller Amendment. Tell her, in this case, her would be Cuba. Tell Cuba that once this war is over, they are free. So according to the Teller Amendment, we declare that we will allow Cuba to be free and independent, which is why this entire situation started. All right, so we're saying one thing and then we're doing another. What is the other? It's the Second Amendment. It's called the Platt Amendment. The Platt Amendment simultaneously gives the United States the power to build an army and naval base in Cuba. So on one hand, you're telling them, right, that they're free. And on the other hand, you're going, yeah, you're free, but we're going to come in when we're ready at any given time to build military bases on your island. So here we go, imperialism, because that really was the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal was to get rich and to possess more power. And they were definitely able to do that at the end of the war under the Platt Amendment. So that's why I have here, how independent is that? Like, you're telling me I'm free, but you're like still hanging around. The truth is, we only needed you to win this war. We were hoping that you would just pack here and go, all right? Some other stuff went down under this treaty too. Let's talk about the Philippines. So the Philippines is an island located on the other side of the world in Asia. And during the Spanish-American War, the Spaniards had possession of the Philippine Islands as well. But when we were engaged in this war between Spain, the Philippines were more than willing to assist us in defending Spain. The question is why? Why do you want to help us? Like, we got this. They were willing to help because they were hoping to gain their independence as a result of helping the United States defeat Spain. So we convinced them that we would help them gain their independence as well. And then when it was time to kind of like back up what we initially said we would do for them, we finessed the shit out of it. We finessed them. And I'll talk about what's the meaning of finesse, because some of us may not know. So we finessed the Philippines. All right, we finessed the Philippines because according to the Treaty of Paris, they did not become independent and free. We actually acquired the Philippines. So what did we get out of the war? We were able to let Cuba, quote unquote, feel independent, but they weren't under the Platt Amendment. We acquired the Philippines, and I hope you're writing this down. We also acquired Guam, which is nearby the Philippines. In addition to all of that, we also acquired Puerto Rico, okay? Puerto Rico is still a territory of the United States today. The Philippines, a few years later, decided enough is enough, we want our independence, and they were granted that. Because as you can see, according to the details of the Treaty of Paris, they were pissed. Stay tuned, I got more. Part 2. Okay, so I did mention a term called finesse, and when you look at the Spanish-American War, there was a lot of examples of finessing going on, but before I kind of break down how we finessed the heck out of, the other countries that were involved in that situation, let me just break down what finessing means according to the Urban Dictionary. So I got this definition from urbandictionary.com, and I just love the way it defined it because it helps me help you understand this concept called imperialism. So according to urbandictionary.com, finesse means getting something taken from you in a slick way. And this website goes as far as using this example, which I thought was funny because it's using a teacher as an example. So here's the example. When your teacher collects money for a pizza party and doesn't show up the next day, that would mean you got finessed. We should have a pizza party this Friday. All right, so finessing means to, basically like screw someone over in a way where they didn't even notice that they were being screwed over. So how was finessing demonstrated in the Spanish-American War? Through the Platt Amendment and the Teller Amendment. You're telling them one thing, which is, hey, you're free and independent. But then in the Platt Amendment, you're telling them, oh, by the way, we're going to set up shop in your country, and there's nothing that you can do about it. That's finessing. Another example of finessing would be how we finesse Spain. We portrayed them as the enemy through the USS Main ship undergoing an explosion. There was no proof that this country initiated that explosion. So to me, that's another example of the United States finessing another country. We most definitely finessed the Philippines. We got them to help us defeat Spain under the assumption, because I don't know if we had something in writing. I don't think we would really care if we did have something in writing. But we had them fighting and helping us. And we had them under the impression that we were going to let them walk away free and independent. And we acquired them according to the guidelines of the Treaty of Paris. So there was a lot of finessing going on. And the Spanish-American War is a great example of imperialism and finessing, but we continue to finesse countries around the world, and I want to go over those countries and those situations with you. Starting with Colombia. So Colombia is located in South America, aka Latin America, and we were conducting a lot of business there. And during this time in history, we approached Colombia. It was like, you know what? I want to show you guys a map. We want to build a canal here. We want to connect North America to South America because currently, this is when they were talking to Colombia, in order to transport goods from one coast of the United States to the other, we would have to take this route called the Cape Horn route. And as you can see, it's about 16,000 miles. It's very dangerous because of the water currents, and it takes a long ass time. So the United States proposed building a canal that would connect the two continents right here in the middle. As you can see, by creating this canal, we're going to cut the amount of time in half, okay? So when they proposed this to Colombia, Colombia at this point had already heard about the finessing that we were conducting with other countries, and they were like, hell no, we're not going to let you build a canal here, because eventually you're going to finesse us as well. You're going to invade our country and control it, but not, make it clear that you're controlling it. So because Colombia denied us permission to build this canal, we finessed them. How do we finesse them? We instigated a revolution. We convinced a group of people that we call today Panamanians to say, you know what? Why are you under the control of Colombia? Why don't you launch your own revolution and become free and independent? Now, why would we instigate a revolution between the Panamanians and the Colombians, because if Panama becomes free and independent, then we don't have to ask Colombia to build a canal. We can just go straight to the Panamanians, and why would they say no? We're helping them. We're instigating this war between the two groups. So I'm pretty sure they're going to agree and also accept foreign aid in the form of money, because when you're new, free and independent, you don't have any money. So, I mean, this is the best way to kind of get what you want as a powerful country, because you're approaching them with something when they're the most vulnerable, okay? So the United States instigated a revolution for the Panamanians to become free and independent from Colombia. They were successful in that. And as a result of Panama now becoming free and independent, we as the United States of America approached them with the idea of constructing the Panama Canal. And they accepted. They were like, great, give us the money. Not knowing that to this day, we still control that area. Have we colonized Panama? No, but we definitely have influence over Panama. And that is the difference between imperialism and colonialism. We're not looking for political control. We're just looking for influence. All right? Let's keep it moving. Some other countries that were finessed. One really important one that always appears on the EOC is China. When I tell you we finessed China, we finessed China. So what was the status of China at this time? What was the status of China at this time? China was not a superpower. China was not the country that you see today. China had a lot of natural resources that any country would want to have access to, which is why countries like England, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan were all in China. Okay? They were actually there first, because, I mean, geographically, they're closer to China. So by the time we heard, damn, China's where it's at, we get there and everyone else is there. So we're like, oh, crap. We really don't want to have no beef, because we're just here for influence, not control. But at the same time, we're not going to be bullied while we're in China. So the United States created their own policy and imposed it on everyone else, called the open door policy. I want you to see this picture. Okay, the open door policy. Okay, this open door policy is basically letting the world know, hey, China is for everybody. Everybody. Okay, that's why in this cartoon you have China at the top. The doors are open, and if you look closer, and I'll probably show you this in class again, so don't worry, you can see the indigenous people of China in the background. Now, who's in front of this door? Uncle Sam. Most political cartoons, if not all political cartoons, Uncle Sam is a figure that symbolizes the United States. So you have Uncle Sam in front of the door, and he's willing to let everyone in. He's not saying no. What he's displaying is everyone can come in, but I am in charge here. I'm not saying no. I just want you to know that as long as I'm here, I'm in charge, and no one can tell me no, because I hold the key to the door. Okay? So mind you, we were not there first, but once we got there, we basically finessed everyone in the situation. Not only did we finesse China, we finessed all of these little men here that symbolizes the countries that were already there prior to us arriving. So these men at the bottom represent England, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. And we basically said, hey, let's all get money together. But most importantly, don't mess with me. Make sense? Now, did the Chinese attempt to at least get all of these foreigners out of their country? Yes, they did. It was like, you know what? We're being exploited here. Everyone needs to go. And they did make an attempt with an event called the Boxer Rebellion. Think about it. They're now rebelling against these countries, taking advantage of them and their natural resources. But unfortunately, they were not successful in getting all of these countries out of their country. So that's just another example of the United States finessing another country through imperialism. So to wrap up this conversation, it's always important to look at the positives and negatives of imperialism. There's a lot of good that can come out of imperialism, and I'm not forcing myself to say this because if you're in the country that is imposing or adopting those imperialist policies, there's plenty of positives. You have more money, you have more power, you're able to protect those that have invested in these countries, and in some weird way, you are putting yourself in a position to help lower developing countries. We have helped other countries. I know our reputation is not the best globally, but oftentimes these countries do request our assistance or allow us to come in and help them develop a much better, a more efficient democracy. So yes, a lot of the positives geared towards us benefiting from imperialism, but there is a small percentage of us being able to assist those in need as well. So let's focus on the negatives here. Number one, we are exploiting other countries. We're taking advantage of them. We're finessing them. We're exploiting their raw materials, their natural resources. We have a tendency to be very rude and nasty. And what do I mean by that? We're frowning upon their cultural beliefs and traditions through nativism, through this mindset of the white man's burden. In our minds, we're thinking we're doing the right thing by telling them to change or assimilate to our culture, but it's offensive as hell, okay? We're in no position to go to another country and force them to change. It's wrong. And in some ways, it can come out very racist. Something that I thought of when I was creating this PowerPoint, when you look at the positive, the fact that we have the opportunity to help lower developing countries, sometimes that help doesn't make it to the people that actually need the help because these countries are controlled by officials that are politically corrupt. So by providing foreign aid, whether it's in the form of military assistance or financial assistance, it can definitely trigger political corruption, meaning these government officials will take billions of dollars from the United States and they use it for personal gain. They don't really use it in a way that's going to help the country, which brings me to my last point that, you know, imperialism doesn't really produce any progress for these lower developing countries due to government officials abusing the system, abusing their power. So does U.S. imperialism exist today? Yes. It's here to stay. Think about what's happening in our world today with our relations with Iran. And I know it's, you know, funny to repost and watch all of these World War III memes, but that entire situation goes back to this concept of imperialism. It's real. People are upset, and people have a lot of money on the line when you think about these relationships that we have, specifically with countries in the Middle East. So I hope you guys take this information that I'm going over with you, and when you're watching the news or when you're listening to what's on the radio, you think about it in a different way. Thank you guys. Stay tuned, get my work done, and I'll see you soon. Mwah.